In this hyperconnected, overstimulated world, the opinions of others are omnipresent. They cling to you like lint on a wool sweater, lingering in the air like secondhand smoke. We move through life with our heads lowered, worshiping at the altar of public opinion, praying for a nod of approval, or at least the absence of whispered judgment. What if there was a switch you could flip to stop caring altogether? If you had that power, how often would you use it? When would you flick it? And for how long? Is it something you'd leave on permanently, like that porch light you never bothered to turn off? That switch exists. You were born with it. It's not some high-tech gadget. It's raw, analog, lodged somewhere between your spine and those guts you've been conditioned to ignore. And once you find it, once you feel that satisfying click when it flips, you'll wonder why you ever wasted so much time tiptoeing around everyone else's opinions. This isn't just about pondering the question. It's about flipping that switch, cutting through the judgments and expectations of others, and finding real freedom by living for yourself. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. Let's first get real about the prison most of us live in, where judgment and validation are the invisible bars that keep us in line. Caring about what others think? That's not some random flaw in your design. It's hardwired into your DNA. Way back when, you weren't just some guy trying to get noticed on Instagram, or a woman hoping her Tinder match swipes right on her casually perfect look. You were part of a tribe, and if your tribe liked you, you were golden. Shelter, food, survival, it all came from staying in the tribe's good graces. Piss them off, and suddenly you're out in the world, fending off saber-toothed tigers and foraging for berries like a caveman with no Wi-Fi. Acceptance wasn't just nice, it was survival. Fast forward a few millennia, and we are still carrying that tribal mentality around like an outdated survival instinct. We don't need the approval of a group to stay alive anymore, but deep down, a part of us thinks we do. So we conform. We shrink ourselves down, put on masks, and squeeze into boxes that society, our peers, or our families have built for us. We have swapped caves for cubicles, hunting and foraging for ordering with an app. Yet that ancient need to be liked lingers like a bad hangover. But the question is, why? Why are we still bowing down to what others think, when frankly, most people are too wrapped up in their own lives to give more than a passing thought to yours? Caring about what others think is wired into our biology. But while there's no automatic off switch, there is a manual one, and you can learn to flip it. The key is knowing when it's useful and when it's holding us back. See, most of the opinions we obsess over aren't even relevant. Who cares if that guy at the office thinks it's odd you eat lunch solo? Why lose sleep over whether your high school friends, who you haven't seen in years, approve of your career choices? These things don't matter in the grand scheme of your life. And these are just examples. And yet they weigh on because we've been conditioned to care. Know that external validation isn't all bad. Let's be real. Getting a compliment, receiving praise for a job well done, or knowing people appreciate your work feels good. There's a dopamine hit that comes with it. The problem is, we often crave it like a drug, and it becomes the yardstick by which we measure our self-worth. Instead of listening to our internal compass, we start making decisions based on how we think others will react. It's like living your life through someone else's rearview mirror. Look around. Everyone's feeding this machine. Social media is an endless buffet for society's addiction. We post, we scroll, we wait for likes, comments, and approval. Every notification is a little hit, a little fix, and then we want more. It's an exhausting cycle. You end up living for an audience and performing for applause that never lasts. Research backs this up. Studies show that people who place a high value on external validation, whether it's through appearance, social status, or approval from others, experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and even depression. You are always chasing that elusive pat on the back, and when it doesn't come, you crash. Our natural instinct is to avoid the bad and seek out the good. But not caring what others think isn't about cutting out negativity to inflate the ego. It's about stepping outside of everyone else's opinions, good or bad, entirely. Imagine how your life would change if you didn't care what people thought, no matter the type of feedback. How effortlessly you could move through the day, acting directly on your own thoughts, goals, and passions. For some, it would be like a rocket launch to the moon, unlocking potential that propels them into the exosphere. When you finally stop caring, when you find that switch, flick it, and let go, the benefits will be like a rush of fresh air after being locked in a stuffy room for too long. When not letting other people's opinions dictate your choices, you start building confidence from within. You walk through life with a certain swagger, knowing that your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something that can be given or taken away by someone else. That's when you start to own your decisions, and your life starts to feel like it's really yours. Here's the truth. Most people spend their lives wearing masks. They pretend to be something they're not because they are terrified of being judged. But when you stop caring what others think, you drop the act. You start showing up as yourself, unapologetically. You start living for your own desires, not someone else's expectations. You become real, raw, and authentic. And trust me, that's when life gets good. When the hope of being liked flies out the window, you weed out the superficial relationships in your life. You stop hanging out with people because you should, or because you are afraid of being alone. Instead, you form connections that are based on genuine respect and understanding. The people who stick around are the ones who actually matter, not the ones who just enjoy your performance. Worrying about what others think is like carrying around an invisible backpack full of rocks. Every time you second guess yourself, you add another rock. But when you stop caring, it's like dropping the backpack. You walk lighter, breathe easier, and sleep better. You are no longer haunted by the endless what ifs and what will they think. You are now free. Finding the switch within requires the understanding and culmination of a few points. These points work together to ultimately flip the metaphorical internal switch, kind of a checklist in a way. The more you can check off daily, the better your progress will be. Knowing your values is your foundation. Without a clear sense of self, you'll be like a leaf in the wind, drifting wherever external forces blow. Take a moment to sit with yourself, away from the noise of daily life. Ask the tough questions. What beliefs do you hold that are non-negotiable? What core principles define your existence? These are your anchors. Once you know them, decisions become less complicated. The clutter of other people's judgments becomes static in the background, easily ignored because your choices are guided by something more powerful, your own values. Let's be brutally honest. The first step in not caring isn't smooth sailing. It feels like stepping outside without armor, naked to the world's judgments. You'll feel the sting of exposure, vulnerability creeping in every thought. That's normal. Discomfort is where transformation lives. Growth doesn't happen in safety. It happens when you stretch beyond it. So when that discomfort rears its head, don't retreat. Lean in. It's the price of freedom. And over time, what felt like threat becomes your new normal. You'll stumble, and that's okay. When external validation is no longer your fuel, you have to start becoming your own support system. Instead of seeking approval from others, turn inward. Be your own advocate. When you falter, instead of berating yourself, offer kindness, just as you would a friend. Compassion toward yourself softens the blow of mistakes, turning missteps into lessons rather than failures. In the absence of external applause, self-compassion is the steady hand that keeps you moving forward. Negative thoughts are inevitable. You'll find yourself spiraling into the trap of worrying about what someone else thinks. When that happens, pause. Take a step back and ask, does this person's opinion have real power over my life? 9 times out of 10, the answer is a resounding no. Their judgment is just that, an opinion, often fleeting and inconsequential. Challenge these thoughts like a lawyer poking holes in a weak argument, and they'll crumble under the weight of their own insignificance. No matter how hard you try, you cannot control what others think of you. Their perception is shaped by their experiences, biases, and insecurities, not your reality. But here's the good news. What you can control is your own actions and mindset. Redirect the energy you waste worrying about their thoughts into something that actually serves you, your own growth, your goals, your happiness. The less you chase external validation, the more room you have for genuine personal development. Imagine you are on a crowded street. Everyone's absorbed in their own world, heads buried in their phones, rushing to their next appointment, lost in thought. It's the same with opinions. Most people are so caught up in their own lives that they give little more than a passing glance to yours. Once you grasp this, it's liberating. The weight of their judgment lifts because, quite frankly, they're not thinking about you nearly as much as you imagine. While the goal is to stop caring about most people's opinions, this doesn't mean walking through life entirely solo. A small circle of people who truly understand you can act as your safety net. These are the ones who won't judge, who hold up a mirror to remind you of your values when the world's noise starts to blur them. They provide support, not in a way that encourages reliance, but as a reflection of your own authenticity. Choose wisely for the right people to amplify your self-assurance. Life is bigger than today's worries. Zoom out. In the grand scheme of things, the opinion of a coworker, a social media comment, or a friend's slight are all minuscule blips. Think of the sheer vastness of the world, the struggles, the triumphs, the history of it all. What matters now will likely be forgotten in a week, a month, or a year. Perspective is your ally. Compare the trivial worries of today to the vastness of the world's problems. War, famine, poverty, and you'll see just how insignificant most opinions truly are. Everything you see, everything you worry about, it's all fleeting. We aren't guaranteed tomorrow, and once you embrace this truth, caring about the opinions of others seems absurd. Every moment is precious, and wasting it worrying about someone else's fleeting judgment is like trying to hold on to smoke. When you accept life's impermanence, it becomes easier to live freely, untethered by the trivial and the temporary. In the end, not caring what others think isn't about becoming a lone wolf or isolating yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about grabbing the wheel and driving your own life. The idea isn't to dismiss every opinion around you, but to trust your internal compass without being overwhelmed by outside noise. In a busy and chaotic world, choosing to let go is a radical act of self-liberation. When you stop seeking validation from others and look inward, you unlock confidence, authenticity, and freedom that no one can take from you.